Hello everyone, I'm Romeo Tasan. I and my partner Jib will discuss chapter 5, which is the personality, perception, and employee attitudes. So before we formally start, let us first discuss our learning objectives. First is to define the overall meaning of personality. Second is to identify the big five personality traits and the Myers-Briggs types. Describe the perceptual process and its major dimensions, and lastly, to examine the sources and outcomes of the major employee attitudes of job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and organizational citizenship behaviors. Meaning of personality. According to Merriam Dictionary, personality is a set of distinctive traits and characteristics. However, through the years, there has not been universal agreement to the exact meaning of personality. This is due to and can be attributed to the fact that people in general and those behavioral science define personality from different perspectives. So, however, in this text, personality will mean how people affect others and how they understand and view themselves, as well as their pattern of inner and outer measurable traits and the person-situation interaction. Next is the role of heredity and brain. So most behavioral scientists now agree that genes play a role not only in the physical characteristics and the brain, but also in personality. For example, a report in the American Psychological Association concludes studies over the past 20 years on twins and adopted children have firmly established that there is a genetic component to just about every human traits and behavior, including personality, general intelligence, and behavior disorders. So, there's a direct link between our genes and personality. However, due to technological limitations, we cannot specifically identify what genes specifically affects our personality. In addition, evolutionary psychologists are suggesting that humans may be hardwired from distant previous generation. So as was noted in a Harvard Business Review article, although human beings today inhabit a thoroughly modern world or space exploration and virtual realities, they do so with the ingrained mentality of Stone Age hunter-gatherers, an instinct to fight furiously when threatened, for instance, and a drive to trade information and share secrets. Human beings are, in other words, hardwired. You can take the person out of the Stone Age, but you can't take the Stone Age out of the person. Social evolution. This suggests that humanity is evolving along the lines of social phenomena such as trust, collaboration, and competition. This social evolutionary process is explained as follows. People who are related collaborate on the basis of nepotism. It takes outrageous profit or provocation for someone to do down a relative with whom they share a lot of genes. Trust, though, allows the unrelated to collaborate by keeping score of who does what when and punishing cheats. The human mind, however, seems to have evolved the trick of being able to identify a large number of individuals and to keep score of relations with them. So those were the theories of the role of heredity to our personality. Next is the next portion, the role of the brain to our personality. So as to the neuropsychology, recent breakthrough in brain scanning technology called the functional magnetic resonance imaging or fMRI allow measurement of brain activity by mapping specific regions that are linked to specialized roles. Example, left and right regions fMRI are also able to detect that amygdala part of the brain has to do with the emotion of the individual. Although there is a very complicated interaction between emotions and thinking, personality and or behavior, there is enough evidence for some to conclude that the following implications for the workplace. Recent discoveries in neuroscience reveal that talent and better quality performance involve not just the frontal lobes, the decision-making brain circuitry that houses intellect, but also the amygdala. In tough economic times, talent and emotional engagement are the only natural competitive advantages. In addition, on how the brain affects our personality, there is now a general agreement that the frontal lobes are the part of the brain that anticipates events and weights the consequences of behavior, while deeper brain regions, including the seahorse-shaped hippocampus and the nearby amygdala, are associated with such things as memory, mood, and motivation. Self-esteem. It is confidence in one's own worth or abilities, or self-respect. When applied to the analysis of personality, an earlier study found that those with high self-esteem tended to become egotistical when faced with pressure situations and may result in aggressive and even violent behavior when threatened. After reviewing the research literature, Krittner and Kinicki conclude high self-esteem can be a good thing, but only if, like many other human characteristics, such as creativity, intelligence, and persistence, it is nurtured and channeled in constructive and ethical ways. Otherwise, it can become antisocial and destructive. Person-situation interaction. This dimension suggests that people are not static, acting the same in all situations, but instead are ever-changing and flexible. For example, employees can change depending on the particular situation they are in interaction with. For instance, it should be understood that even everyday work experience can change people, meaning our personality is subject to change depending on the person and situations we encounter. Because every encounter is an opportunity to learn, so there is always a room for improvement. The socialization process. There is increasing recognition given to the role of other relevant persons, groups, and especially organizations that greatly influence an individual's personality. This continuous impact from the social environment is commonly called the socialization process. It is especially relevant to organizational behavior because the process is not confined to early childhood. Rather, it takes place through one's life. In particular, evidence is accumulating that socialization may be one of the best explanations for why employees behave the way they do in today's organization. As Edgar Schein notes, it is high time that some of our managerial knowledge and skill be focused on those forces in the organization environment, which derive from the fact that organizations are social systems which do socialize their new members. If we do not learn to analyze and control the forces of organizational socialization, we're abdicating one of our primary managerial responsibilities. Socialization starts with the initial contact between a mother and her new infant. After infancy, other members of the immediate family, such as father, brothers, and sisters, close relatives and family friends, and then the social groups like peers, school friends, and members of the work group play influential roles. The society that you're in greatly influences your personality. Accordingly, there's a saying that tell me who your friends are and I will tell you who you are. The big five personality traits. These traits have held up as accounting for personality in many analyses over the years and even across cultures. Importantly, not only is there now considerable agreement on what are the core personality trait predispositions, but there is also accumulated research that these five best predict performance in the workplace. So just a briefer, on how it became just only 5 personality traits. Many years ago, it has no less than 18 words were found to describe personality. So even after combining words with similar meanings, there still remain 171 personality traits. So obviously, such huge number of personality traits is practically unusable. So that is why from 18,271, it is now 5 personality traits for it to be used efficiently. The real value of the Big Five to organizational behavior is that it does bring back the importance of predispositional traits, and these traits have been clearly shown to relate to job performance. So this is like a standard personality traits that an employee should have in relation to a job. This does not intend to imply that one or two of the Big Five provide an ideal personality profile for employees over their whole career, because different traits are needed for different jobs. The key is still to find the right fit. So what are the Big Five personality traits? Let me show you a table to explain those traits. So you can see in the left column, those are the big for big five personal traits or the core traits, namely the conscientiousness, emotional stability, agreeableness, extraversion, and openness to experience. And at the right column are the descriptive characteristics of high scorers. Sample, we can evaluate how conscientious an employee or an person is depending if how dependable is he or she, how hardworking, how organized, how self-disciplined, persistent, and responsible. Same as true through other traits. If you are emotionally stable, you are calm, you're secure, happy, and unworried. If you're agreeable, you're cooperative, warm, caring, good-natured, courteous, and trusting. If you're an extrovert, you are sociable, outgoing, talkative, assertive, and gregarious. If you're open to experience, you're curious, you're intellectual, you're creative, you're cultured, you're artistically sensitive and flexible and imaginative. The positive impact of conscientiousness. There is a general agreement that conscientiousness has the strongest positive correlation with job performance. It should also be noted that conscientious employees may provide a major competitive advantage. As a meta-analysis concluded, individuals who are dependable, persistent, goal-directed, and organized tend to be higher performers on virtually any job. Viewed negatively, those who are careless, irresponsible, low achievement striving, and impulsive tend to be lower performance on virtually any job. Put in relation to other organizational behavior areas as a personality trait per se, conscientious employees set higher goals for themselves, have higher performance expectations, and respond well to job enrichment and empowerment strategies of human resource management. So it goes without saying that out of the big five traits, it is really important that an employer and a person should have conscientiousness. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. The theory goes back to pioneering Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung in 1920s. He felt people could be typed into extroverts and introverts, and that they had two basic mental processes, perception and judgment. He then further divided perception into sensing and intuiting, and judgment into thinking and feeling. This yields four personality dimensions or traits. introversion and extroversion, perceiving or judging, sensing or intuition, and thinking and feeling. He felt that although people had all four of these dimensions in common, they differ in the combination of their preferences of each. Importantly, he made the point that one's preferences were not necessarily better than others, only different. Hence, you may introvert but you're judging, or introvert but you're perceiving. So it depends on a person's preferences, but it doesn't mean that one's preferences is better than the other. It is only different. About 20 years after Jung developed his theoretical types, in the 1940s, the mother-daughter team of Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers developed about 100-item personality tests asking participants how they usually feel or act in particular situations in order to measure the preferences of the four pairs of traits yielding six distinct types, called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or simply MBTI. So from the study of psychiatrist Carl Jung generating four personality traits, it is further developed by the mother-daughter team Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs, which created uh, 16 additional 16 personality traits. So to show you, I prepared a table for the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So this is the Jung theory dimensions and the Myers-Briggs type indicator table. So as you can see, the table is subdivided into four main questions, which uh, answers the four personality traits developed by Jung. And the four personality traits developed by Jung were further expounded by the 16 personality traits developed by Myers-Briggs. So, first question is, where do you get your energy? So, is it being an extrovert or from being an introvert? So, if you are an extrovert, you are outgoing, interacting, speaks then think, and gregarious. If you are introvert, you are quiet, concentrating, thinks before speaking, and being reflective. So the second question is, what do you pay attention to and collect information on? So the second question, what do you pay attention to and collect information on? Is it through by sensing or intuiting? So if it is through sensing, you collect information on practical things, details, concrete things, and specific. If it is through intuiting, it is through general data, possibilities, theoretical, and abstract. Third question is, how do you evaluate and make decisions? Is it through by thinking or is it through by feeling? If you evaluate and make decisions by thinking, you're analytical, you use your head, follow rules, and justice. If it is through by feeling, you are subjective, you sometimes almost all the time follow your heart and based on circumstances and mercy. Last is, how do you orient yourself to the outside world? Is it to judging or being perceiving? If you orient yourself by judging, so you are structured, time-oriented, decisive, and organized. Is it if it is through perceiving, you are flexible as contrary to being structured, being open-ended, exploring and spontaneous as contrast in being organized.
Hello guys, I'm Jibril Norkalib and I'm here to discuss about the perception process. But before we discuss about this, let's find out what perception is. So, what is perception? Perception is a unique interpretation of the situation, not an exact recording of it. It is a very complex cognitive process that yields a unique picture of the world, a picture that may be quite different from reality. It can also be thought of as a filter on how we see things. So basically, every individual has their own perception. What we see and what others see are the same, but how they interpret what they see may be different. Sensation versus perception. Sensation, the raw sensory input from internal and external stimuli, can be thought of as the physiological functions of vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Perception, the cognitive process that yields a unique picture of the world. It uses sensation as raw data and uses the cognitive process to filter, modify, or completely change the data. So, an example of this is that a person's answer to a question is based on what he heard the boss say and not what the boss actually said. The perception portion is the interpretation of what he heard the boss say, and the sensation portion is what the boss actually said, which is the raw, unprocessed input data. The sub-processes of perception. It starts with the stimulus, then the confrontation of that stimulus, registration, interpretation, feedback, behavior, and consequence. So what does this mean? Let's find out in the next slide. The sub-processes of perception. We all know that there needs to be an external stimuli before we can begin the perception process. And once the stimuli is induced, the perception process begins. The first step, confrontation. Confrontation of an external stimuli or sensation. The next three steps are under the internal cognitive process. Registration, the physiological mechanisms are affected. Example, how well you see and hear. Interpretation, the psychological understanding based on learning, motivation, and personality. Feedback, sensory impressions from interpreted information. So after the internal cognitive process, we react to a behavior. It's either an overt or covert behavior. Then we reap the consequence of that behavior. And so I will give an example. The stimulus is when a taxpayer asks a question. The confrontation portion is when the sound waves reaches the ear. In the internal cognitive process, the registration portion, it is how well your ear perceives the sound waves coming from the taxpayer. Then interpretation, what does the sound wave mean? In this case, he asks where to claim the TIN ID requested. The feedback is where the feelings of satisfaction came in knowing that you know the answer to the taxpayer's question. And in the behavior portion, you spoke politely and gently to convey your answer. And the consequence of your behavior is that the taxpayer is happy and endorses to his acquaintances that the Bureau is very, very accommodating. Social perception. It is concerned with how one individual perceives other individuals, how we get to know others. This includes perceiving individuals into one group. So an example of this is stereotyping, where it is the tendency to perceive another person in a single class or category. The halo effect, to perceive another person based on one trait. And the horns effect, where downgrading a person because of single negative characteristic or incident. Work-related attitudes, positive affectivity and negative affectivity. To summarize, it is how their attitude affects those who are around them and themselves. The major dimensions of employee attitudes. They include job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and organizational citizenship behavior. Job satisfaction. Well, you could see in your screen the meaning of job satisfaction, but basing on what the words say, you can already know that it is how satisfied you are with your job. These could include three things: emotional response to a job situation, how well outcomes or results meet or exceed expectations, and the other influences on the job satisfaction itself, like the work itself, the pay, promotion opportunities, supervision, and coworkers. Influences on job satisfaction. Number one, the work itself. It is basically the content of the job itself, like how interesting, fun, boring, complex, or challenging the job is may relate to job satisfaction. Number two, pay. It is basically the financial consideration for our services, and how much pay the employee gets will also relate on their job satisfaction. Number three, promotions. It is promotion via seniority or promotion via performance. Promotion for money or promotion for power. It is not only about how you are promoted, but what you want from your promotion. But for many people, a positive work environment and opportunities to grow are more important than promotion opportunities. Number four, supervision. There are two dimensions of supervision: employee-centeredness and participation and influence. Employee-centeredness is measured by the degree to which a supervisor takes a personal interest and cares about the employee. Examples of this include checking how well the employee is doing, providing advice and assistance to the individual, and communicating complaints to their supervisors. The other dimension is participation and influence. This allows their people to participate in decisions that affect their own jobs. A participative climate created by the supervisor seems to have a more substantial effect on worker satisfaction than does participation in a specific decision. Coworkers. Your coworkers should be a source of support and assistance, not irritation and stress. Working conditions. The surroundings must be clean and attractive. Let's say no to noisy surroundings. Due to excessive stress, sometimes complaints about working conditions usually are manifestation of other problems, not the actual problem being complained about. After discussing about the influences of job satisfaction, let's talk about its outcomes. Number one, satisfaction and performance. Do satisfied employees perform better in the organization? Well, there's definitely a positive relationship, but it is not as great as an assumption that happy workers equals more productive workers. Showing satisfaction influences performances rather than vice versa. Satisfaction may not necessarily lead to individual performance improvement, but it does lead to departmental and organizational level improvement. In conclusion, job satisfaction should not be considered the endpoint in human performance, but it should, along with the other dimensions discussed, play an important role in the study and application of organizational behavior. The second outcome of job satisfaction is turnover. High job satisfaction helps in reducing turnover. The more satisfied your employees are, the less frequent and less motivated they will leave the company. Age, position, and commitment to the organization can influence turnover. So if you are in a higher age or in a higher position, you are less likely to leave the company because of the number of years you have already spent in the company, and the position you attained is already a big investment to your current company. But better outside opportunities may cause employees to leave even when satisfied. The third outcome is job absenteeism. The more satisfied you are with your job, the less likely you are to be absent. And ways to enhance satisfaction: make jobs more fun, have fair pay, compensation, benefits, and promotion opportunities. Match people with jobs that fit their interests and skills. Design jobs to make them exciting and satisfying, because the more satisfied the employee is, the better they perform in the organization. Organizational commitment. It is a strong desire to remain a member of a particular organization. It is the willingness to exert high levels of effort on behalf of the organization. It is a definite belief in and acceptance of the values and goals of the organization. So the more committed you are, the more you want to put more effort in the organization, and the more your beliefs align with it. There are three components of organizational commitment. Number one is the affective commitment, which means the employee's emotional attachment to the organization. It includes fond memories with your coworker, the stress and fun times you have remembered while being in the organization. Next is the continuance commitment. It is the involvement based on the cost that the employee associates with leaving the organization, the loss of seniority or current position. So it is like the regret of leaving the organization because you already have a high position in the company. Normative commitment is the feelings of obligation to stay with the organization because they should, or it is the right thing to do, they said. Outcomes of organizational commitment. There are mixed outcomes. Organizational commitment can result to high performances, low turnover, and low absenteeism, which is very good. There is also evidence that employee commitment relates to other desirable outcomes, such as the perception of a warm, supportive organizational climate and being a good team member willing to help. Yet, as with satisfaction, there are some studies that do not show strong relationships between commitment and outcome variables. For example, one study found a stronger relationship between organizational commitment and performance for those with low financial needs than for those with high ones. And another study found that the more tenure the employees had on the job and with the employing organization, the less impact their commitment had on performance. Also, another study found out that commitment to supervisors was more strongly related to performance than was commitment to organizations. These and a number of other studies indicate that complexity of an attitude and situation relates to organizational commitment. Guidelines to enhance organizational commitment. To reduce the negative impact of organizational commitment to the organization and its employees, they must first follow these guidelines. Commit to people first values. Hire the right kind of managers and walk the talk. Clarify and communicate your mission. Clarify the mission and ideology. Make it charismatic. Use value-based hiring practices. Stress values-based orientation and training. Build the tradition. Next, guarantee organizational justice. Have a comprehensive grievance procedure. Provide for extensive two-way communications. Create a sense of community by building value-based homogeneity, share and share alike, emphasize brainstorming, cross-utilization, and teamwork. Get together. And last is support employee development. Commit to actualizing, not theorizing. Provide first-year job challenge, enrich and empower, promote from within. Provide developmental activities, and provide employee security for their physical and mental health. The third and the last dimension of employee attitudes are organizational citizenship behaviors. This relates to the individual behavior that is discretionary, not directly or explicitly recognized by the formal reward system, and that in the aggregate promotes the effective functioning of the organization. Personally, I define organizational citizenship behaviors in one word: initiative. But organizational citizenship behaviors, or OCBs, can also take on many forms aside from initiative. It includes altruism, helping out when a coworker is not feeling well; conscientiousness, staying late to finish a project; civic virtue, volunteering for a community program to represent a firm; sportsmanship, sharing failure of a team project that would have been successful; courtesy, being understanding and empathetic even when provoked. So, to summarize the organizational citizenship behaviors, they include the employee's initiative to cooperate, the employee's loyalty and empathy to other people and the organization itself. Individuals who usually exhibit OCBs or organizational citizenship behaviors usually perform better and receive higher performance evaluations. But do not rely too much on individual initiative, as it could lead to higher levels of job stress, employee role overload, and work-family commitment for them. In conclusion, personality is a set of distinctive traits and characteristics. It is inherently unique to every individual, while perception is a unique interpretation of the situation, not an exact recording of it. It acts as a filter on how we see things. Employee attitudes consists of job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and organizational behavior. Thank you and have a good day.